So we have a quorum, so let's get started. Dee, can you take the roll?
Hey, Chris Sturbaum,
Here.
John Saunders, Doug Bruce, Sam DeSaller,
I saw him.
Here.
Lee Sandweiss, Bernard Cross, Jeff Golden,
Here.
Duncan Campbell,
Here.
Derek Ritchie,
Hey, John.
Matt Seddon,
Here.
Jenny Southern. Here.
So let me check.
And then D, I think one also had Elizabeth Mitchell to the roll. She's here.
Okay. Elizabeth Mitchell.
Yes, I'm here.
Give me a second. I'm on the phone with John, trying to get him on. Okay, here we go.
While we're waiting on that, Jenny, did you have a staff question or something we can answer? I saw you had your hand up. Jenny? Did you have your hand up?
No, I didn't. I don't
Oh.
think so.
Oh, that's my cursor. I apologize. My cursor, the hand for my cursor was on your picture and it looked like I raised hand. My apology.
Okay.
No problem.
Sorry, everyone.
Hey, John.
Okay, so I am back. So let's move forward. So there should be a copy of the minutes in your packet, and hopefully you review them. I'm entertaining a motion.
I would like to make a correction to the minutes.
Go for it.
COA 21-23, it states I made a motion to approve it, and I actually made a motion to deny it.
Okay,
That was that signage issue last time around.
right. So that's one correction. Anybody else? Okay, with that correction, I'm looking for a motion.
Move to approve with correction.
Second.
Dee?
Hey, did you say Matt was a voting member now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders, Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Yes.
Bernard Cross, Jeff Golden,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
and Elizabeth Mitchell.
I'm here, but I don't feel I'm qualified to vote today. If that's what you want to do is vote.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't care to vote. I need to know
can
what I'm
abstain.
voting for. I have no knowledge of this, so I'm just
You
going to
have-
listen today.
Can you abstain, please?
I abstain.
Thank you.
okay, motion carries 5 yes, 0 no, 1 abstain.
Okay, we have a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things, everyone on the agenda. I just wanted to put a place on the agenda just to update you on a couple of things. First and foremost, our new program manager, who will start Monday, is on with us tonight. Gloria Cullen is on. Gloria, thanks for hopping on tonight. She'll be starting Monday here in the hand department, and she's got great background in historic preservation and some experience working in that field, both in her academic pursuits and in her native territory of Puerto Rico. So I look forward to having Gloria on board with us. I want to thank Brent for sort of heading up the process of bringing on a new program manager. We're excited to have Gloria on board. So Gloria, welcome.
Welcome, Gloria.
A couple of quick things for the commission. I don't know if anyone was aware of this already, but wanted to make sure you knew that the McDowell Gardens neighborhood has applied to be on the National Register and will go before the State Historic Preservation Review Board next Tuesday at 1:30 in Indianapolis. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew that hearing was taking place. It's on the list with a number of other places around the state. The Smith House that the commission designated earlier this summer is pending before the council. So I'm talking to the council staff about that, and looks like maybe in August or September, we'll hear that before the council. So just stay tuned on that designation consideration for the Smith House. Want to keep everybody updated on that. I just want to welcome again our new members to the commission. So Brendan, do you have anything on the staff side that I've left out?
I don't believe so. I do want to thank Jeff Golden for participating in the interview process, along with Jackie Scanlon from City Planning in the process of hiring Gloria Cullum. So thank you, Jeff, for that. Much appreciated. And like John Zodi said, Gloria is starting on Monday. We're very excited as she's officially accepted, and HR has worked through its process. So I believe, one of the first orders of business will be to reach out to commissioners directly and reach out to the leadership in historic neighborhoods. And so if anybody has, some suggestions or topics or issues that are top of mind, by all means, communicate those to me and John, and we'll certainly get you all Gloria's contact information once she's officially on board. But that's a nice update, I think, for the commission this evening.
That concludes my report, Jeff.
Okay, great. So there's no COAs tonight. So let's move on to demolition delay. Brent?
There's a resolution.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. For the virtual meeting policy. I know. So our city legal counsel, Daniel Dixon, is out. He just had a baby, but Philippa Guthrie is on here, and so effectively, and I don't want to get into Philippa's lane here, but the boards and commissions are taking up this resolution in particular. In the event that we go back to in-person commission and board meetings, there has to be this resolution passed by each body to allow that to happen. And the governor's executive order has been extended, so it's not immediately pressing, but city legal wanted us to get this in front of HPC to go ahead and review and to take a vote on, so that we're ready to go back to in-person transitioning once the governor's executive order is no longer in effect. So Philippa, if you wanted to comment on that or the resolution, great, but it was in the packet if folks had a chance to review it as well.
You're muted, Philippa.
Sorry, I muted and then unmuted and muted. The requirement actually is to allow you to do partly hybrid meetings. So you can have up to, you have to have 50% of basically your quorum in person, and others can be on Zoom. So as soon as the emergency ends, if we don't have this policy, you have to be entirely in person. So that's the nuance.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Sam.
So if we have a quorum of 5 and it's 50%, does that mean we have to have 3?
Sorry, no, you have to have 50% of your members in person.
Of the
50%
members? Of the entire
No,
membership?
no, I think it says of the quorum. I
Okay.
didn't draft this one. This is, so,
So I would guess that if in that circumstance, we would have to have 3. Because 2 would not be 50%. Unless my math is off. Is that correct?
Brent, do you know? I can't see it.
I've got my screen shared here. I think, I mean, the way that this reads, let's see here, section 3, at least 50% of the members must be physically present at a meeting at which a member will participate by means of electronic communication. So that reads to me like of the members of the commission, 50% need to be present, once
Yes.
this policy goes into effect.
Yeah, you have to have your quorum present, which is 50%. So it's got to be of the members.
So then I
Right,
think,
and so I'm wondering, but we had,
Some language about how many times you can be virtual, and so there are some restrictions for sure.
and I guess the other thing is we have voting and non-voting members, so I wonder if we should stick in 50% of voting members. Because our advisory members are, they are many, and sometimes they're here and
Yeah,
sometimes they're not.
I think that's a good amendment to
I
avoid
would agree.
confusion.
So is it 50% of the quorum?
No, 50%.
Total members.
It says 50% of the members.
Yeah, that's an
Voting
issue. So I like the voting members, so that makes it the quorum. That addresses the quorum anyway.
How many voting members are there? 8? I don't know.
7?
I think currently,
We have 4.
well, I think for voting membership, now I know that we've had a couple of folks fall off due to moving out of the country and out of state. I think we're at 8 right now. Which is why we have to have 5 for quorum, unless that number ticked up to 9. John Zodi, if you can recall, with the addition of Matt being now a voting member, but
Yeah, let me do a quick count here, Brent, and see.
yeah.
I'm still not clear. I guess I got confused during this conversation, whether it's 50% of the total membership or the 50% of the people that are at the meeting. I'm reading this, it's members.
It says members.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
So counting Lee Sandweiss, who we know is sort of in absentia, it's 9 voting members right now, which is, which you have to have a 5. You have to have 5 for a quorum, which is what we have tonight.
So
So
we'd have to have 5 present in this circumstance.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that the intent or is that just the way it was written?
No, I believe that this is the policy that the city council passed as well, and it comes pretty much verbatim from the statute, these provisions. So I think the intent is that they don't want 2 people on a 9-member board sitting in because that happens to be who's there that evening, being
Right.
able to, everybody else going remote.
So this is just 1 or 2 members can probably do this at a time.
Yeah,
And not really, because we average, I bet, 6 at the meetings. So it's pretty much in person.
yeah, I don't think, that they were trying to compromise. I don't think they love the idea of remote meetings. It was really just because of the emergency. So this was their compromise, to allow some members to be remote.
Hey, Sam, do you have a comment?
So if we amended it to quorum,
Yes.
would be allowed to?
I don't think so. Let me check the statute.
So my comment was going to be the amendment to not only voting members, but voting members present at the meeting. Because like,
So I guess we need some clarification from
Yeah.
legal, if that's,
Quorum would work, that word.
or 50% of quorum, that would work too.
Excuse me, my question is 50% physically there or electronic, or does it make any difference?
And Philip, I think, is looking into this right this second, but this is a directive from the state legislature. And so I think the intent, if you read that, just A of section 3, basically, the second sentence is important. Not more than 50% of members may participate by electronic means. So basically, if we're gonna make it voting members, and to John Zodi's point, if there are 9 voting members, that to me means that 5 have to be physically present for each meeting. And then it goes on to say, there's some rules about how often you can appear electronically. So they don't want the same folks being remote every single meeting. And so but again, I don't think there's a ton of wiggle room, because this was a directive from the state that was passed by the city council that's required of all boards and commissions.
And it doesn't say voting and non-voting members, it just says members, so that would apply across the board, it sounds like.
No, I think they mean voting members.
I think so as well. I mean, we get it. I think if we could probably take this up as an amended policy this evening, to be heard by the commission to clarify voting members. But I think that's the intent of the law, is voting members. I don't think they've anticipated there being advisory members included in this.
so I guess where I'm at is I don't feel comfortable voting on this until we get some clarification on
Yeah,
these.
that's fine. I can get you clarification. I'm trying to find it right now, and I'm having trouble. But
Okay,
if you
so-
want to go through the rest of your agenda, and I can,
Maybe you can get back to us. Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah, yep.
Okay. So now let's move on to demolition delay.
Okay. Okay, so demo delay 2110 is at 2412 West 3rd Street. Petitioner is Ralph Shorts. He's with K&R Construction. The property is contributing. It's a mid-century ranch, 1955. Effectively, this arose out of the fact that the city has issued an unsafe building order and for removal, and it was issued on May 5th. In the order, it says that full removal is necessary because it's an impaired structure that's unsafe to people and property, and the deadline is July 25th. That's why it's coming before you this evening. It's a standalone residential structure, and because of its, I guess, compromised integrity and not demonstrable historic value, we're recommending that the HPC release the demo delay for 2110.
Is there a representative from the petitioner present? Hearing no response, I'm assuming not. That's okay. We can move forward. So Commissioner questions. Sam?
No questions.
Bernard? Any questions, Bernard? Can't hear you, Bernard.
No questions.
Thank you. Matt?
No.
Duncan?
Well, I don't really have any questions, but I don't know how we're supposed to make a determination about this when we can't even see the building. I mean, there's a report that it's in such bad condition that it has to be torn down by some third party, the city presumably. And then we've shown a picture that is illegible. I mean, you can't see anything. So just as a matter of procedure in the future, we have to be able to see what we're voting on. And I'm sorry, but it's just a little insulting to see a picture of a house completely covered by trees and being asked to just believe that this is all the case. So, you know, as an advisory member, I'm just saying this doesn't meet the standard that we need to meet.
I see you writing, Gloria. I hope you're noting this. Chris?
Yeah, I'll approve the trees being cut down. No
Jenny?
questions.
I don't have any questions. Thanks.
John?
No questions.
Am I missing anybody?
Yeah, I raised my hand. I don't know if it came.
Oh,
through.
sorry. Yeah.
This is a
Elizabeth?
little,
Yes.
I'm new today. My question is, does anyone know the historic? I'm a historian and I hate destroying things that have history. So does anybody know the history of this building?
It doesn't appear that that research has been done.
I'll just say there was I approved the unsafe order here. There was a outbuilding. If you go and scroll down a little bit there, Brent, there was an outbuilding in front of it that has already been removed. And shortly after it came on, I approved this unsafe permit. Or unsafe order, I should say.
I'm going to remind the commission, especially for our new members, the demolition delay is a two-choice system. We either recommend the property for individual designation to the city council, or we release the permit. We have no other power in this case.
Do we know what the zoning is on this property?
As far as whether it's residential or commercial, John, or are you looking at the district?
Yeah, I'm looking at it on Google Maps, and that's on West 3rd Street. There's car places next to it, and that's why I'm wondering, is this property zoned as commercial?
Yeah, I believe it's
Looking right now.
Thank you.
It's in the city. It is zoned MC. Which I don't remember what that is. That's a new one.
Is the planner with us tonight?
Yeah, I'm here. Keegan Gulick, zoning and long range planner. MC is mixed use corridor. And it does allow for commercial. It also allows for single family.
Thanks, Keegan.
No problem.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Commissioner comments. I'm going to start with you because you've moved to the top, Elizabeth.
I have.
Yes.
I agree. I agree with the gentleman. I can see this outbuilding, but I can't see what they're talking about. I don't see the building, and then other pictures, it's really dark. And I'd like to know the history of the building. That's just something I enjoy. So I made a note, maybe I'll drive by there tomorrow. I don't know. Do the commissions ever go out to sites and look at stuff?
Of course. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, because I can't see what they're talking about other than what looks like a garage.
Great.
I've been by there multiple times. It's an old limestone house that is in extremely bad condition. And judging that it's in a commercial area, I would support demolition.
Okay. Sam, your comments?
I drove by the other day too, and I concur with John's assessment. And given the only choices we have are to recommend it for designation or to let this one go, I would support this this application.
Bernard?
Support the application also.
Matt?
You can get a better view off of Google Streets. And so I agree with everything else that's been said, and I would support the application.
Duncan?
2412 West Third. It's that old ranch house.
Duncan, anything else to add?
Well, I'll just, just emphasize what I said before. This is a mid-century 1955 house at a time when mid-century architecture is booming in popularity, and we have absolutely no evidentiary presentation, and that's just I get that hasn't been staff and that the people who are running the meeting aren't preservation experts and make excuses all the way down the line, but this is just not adequate to allow us to do our job, and I think it should be postponed until we're given either we have enough time to go by there personally and make a decision that we can stand by, or get a better picture. Because I wouldn't, if I were voting, I wouldn't vote on something I don't have any information on.
Chris?
I can't add, and sorry to interrupt whoever was talking there. I can't add that it's been vacant for at least 5 years.
That's just demolition by neglect. That's just making it happen so that they get a commercial permit in here. That's demolition by neglect. We don't allow that.
Yeah,
so there could be a violation here as far as we're concerned.
Just adding that to the mix.
Okay.
Chris?
I'm just saying that's not an excuse. That's more evidence that we need.
Chris?
No, it is an embarrassing presentation, but we understand that we'll consider it a one-of, and I think given the limited choices we have here, we'll let this real estate deal go through.
Jenny?
Well, I'd say that it's, I wish I'd gone by and looked, since we, went ahead and allowed the demolition of the one on Patterson. It was a much more interesting house, and I don't think there's any fabric around this one that would make a neighborhood. So it would have to be a standalone designation. And it's probably not up to steam on that one. So I would like enough time. I understand. When is this supposed to be demolished by, according to the city?
July.
There's a demolition order.
In a
correct?
couple weeks, so it's yes or no today.
Okay, so we don't have time to put it off. Okay, well, I'd say I'd support it, but I would not like to see this again, and especially anything that has fabric around it, or a little bit of history would be nice.
I think you do have time to put it off. You have 90 days. 180 if we need it.
Yeah, I would need to see if Director Zodi could bump out that July 25th date, because the unsafe order is what was signed by hand to order the removal. If that can be extended, then I wouldn't see anything wrong with taking this up on July 22nd, and we could do, get some, I guess, more pictures. I mean, from the sites and the structures document, there's nothing in there about this property. But we could do some additional research if we could bump out that July 25th date, because that's the unsafe order for removal. That's the only that's the timeline that we're up against as it stands today.
That being said, the political reality of this is that if we send this to the council, I'm 99% sure that it's not going to be approved. So it's just a big waste of time. I've driven by this property. It's in poor condition. There's no context. There isn't anything that makes this worth the effort.
I do have one more comment. And I'm not proposing that we delay, but there is a history of a house similar to this, a brick ranch, a limestone ranch that got moved to West 9th Street. It's a fantastic home that Bloomington Restorations restored. And it happened in something like this way, where a demolition was proposed and people talked about options for the house, and something really great happened. So there are interesting things that can happen with our attention to some of these properties. And that's just something for a historical perspective on what can happen. But I'm going to let this one go.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Today, regarding the property located at 2412 West 3rd Street, the Historic Preservation Commission declares that it got notice of the proposed demolition, and after today's discussion sees no need to review the plans any further and waives the rest of the demolition delay waiting period. The HPC may later recommend the property for historic designation to Common Council. Need a second.
Second.
Dee?
Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
I'm going to abstain.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 0 no, 1 abstain.
So let's move on to new business. Are we going to do the green home improvement first?
Yes, I believe Kaisa and Lauren are on the, I'm sorry, Kaisa Goodman and Lauren Travis are on the Zoom here this evening, and they are going to present on the Green Home Improvement Program.
Okay.
Hey, Brad, Jeff, if I might jump in real quick, Philippa had her hand up, and
oh, sorry, I didn't see it.
I just want to say if there's any clarifying information that will allow us to vote on that policy. I know one of our members has to leave at 6, so if I might ask, sorry to interject, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry, my hand kept disappearing. There's something weird with my computer tonight. So the statute is HEA 1437, that's House Enrolled Act, and it requires that at least 50% of the members of a governing body, that would be the commission, must be physically present at the meeting. And there is no distinction based on voting or non-voting. So I don't see how you could include non-voting in that. That to me says voting members.
So that's the statute that we can't.
Right. And you can't be less stringent than the statute. You can only be more stringent.
Okay.
So that basically means it's going to be everybody in person every week, because we get a very limited pool of folks that can show.
Okay.
Unless they meet the criteria that are in that policy for military service, there are about 4 of them.
Okay. Before we move on, Elizabeth, you've had your hand up for a while.
Oh, I don't know how to put it back down.
Okay. All right. So any other questions regarding the resolution?
When does it
motion?
Just when does it come into place, and how long does it stay in effect? I mean, this is sort of pandemic dependent.
Yeah, it's so long as the governor has continued to declare an emergency, you can do fully remote. As soon as he retracts that, which we thought he was going to do at the end of this month, or the June, and he didn't. He extended it again. But as soon as that is rescinded, then this policy takes effect.
So if we don't pass this, then we have to be.
Yeah, you have to be fully present.
So John, you were going to say something?
I was going to make a motion to approve the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Dee?
Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Elizabeth Mitchell,
Abstain. I'm just learning.
Renard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 0 no, 1 abstain.
Great. Thank you, Philippa. Okay, so now you have the floor for the presentation.
Thank you. Kaisa, do you want to share your screen? If we can?
Yeah, I can screen share if that's okay.
Guys, I think I just made you a co-host. I think that'll allow you to share. I know that I've got it. I've got my screen shared and it's pulled up. So whatever you think's best.
Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, my name is Kaisa Goodman. I co-work with Lauren Travis and I work in the Department of Economic and Sustainable Development. I'm the Special Projects Manager. And Lauren is the Assistant Director for Sustainability.
Yeah, thank you for having us here today. We just wanted to tell you about a new program, and it relates to the Historic Preservation Commission because some homes in Bloomington obviously are in historically designated areas, and we'll get into how this program will interface with your commission a little bit later in the presentation. So Kaisa will start.
All right, thank you. So this is, today we're talking about the Bloomington Green Home Improvement Program. This program is a collaboration between the City of Bloomington's Department of Economic and Sustainable Development, the Clean Energy Credit Union, and CDFI Friendly Bloomington. It's a 2021 pilot program that will provide financial support to homeowners in Bloomington city limits who are wanting to make energy efficiency upgrades to their homes. So the goals of this program are to both assist with economic and environmental justice by reducing utility costs, reducing the overall environmental footprint of Bloomington, and then also make it more financially accessible for more homeowners to make green home improvements. So just so there's some background on the program partners and why we're working with them. One of our partners is Clean Energy Credit Union. They are a CDFI that specifically focuses on lending related to like solar, geothermal, and other green home improvements. And what sets them apart is that they have really reasonable interest rates and are able to offer loans to a wider range of people than many other banks. And they were formed because they noticed that there weren't a lot of good options for people who were wanting to do, for example, solar on their home, as most lenders still consider that to be a risky loan that has often high interest rates and often puts a lien on the home itself, which isn't a great option for many people. And so they're formed specifically to fill this niche, and they're kind of the leaders in that industry. And then our other partner is CDFI Friendly Bloomington. You may all be familiar with them. CDFI Friendly Bloomington serves as an intermediary between the borrowers and the CDFI, which in this case is the Clean Energy Credit Union. So it helps to balance private and public funds to with a focus on affordable lending through the lens of equity and sustainability. So while the lending itself is done through the Clean Energy Credit Union, Brian Payne at CDFI Friendly Bloomington and his staff have been really instrumental in helping us to build that relationship and also just to navigate this new program. And they're a major resource on this project. So the types of projects that we're looking at fall into 3 main categories. Each of these is a separate type of loan that the Clean Energy Credit Union offers. So the first is solar electric system installations, like solar panels on a home. The second is geothermal heat pump systems. And then the third is a more catch-all green home improvements category that includes upgrades to the building envelope, as well as things that would be more internal in the house, like energy efficient lighting or appliances, HVAC systems, and also extends to electric vehicle chargers, though not electric vehicles themselves. And now I'm just going to turn it over to Lauren for the next part.
So we established this program because even though there's some lending options locally, they're not the best for everyone. So one of the things that is an aspect of this program will be that the loans for the types of improvements that Kaisa mentioned on the previous slides will be provided at a lower interest rate, additional 0.5% down. And the difference is that they're not loans against your home equity. So often across Bloomington, if someone's looking to get a loan to get solar, they have to put a lien against the home. Would be against the equipment, the actual physical panels and the racking on the roof for the solar. And then another thing to incentivize people to participate is that if they complete a project and provide proof of completion, they will receive a rebate. So the project has to be at least $3,000, and they need to be verified with a household income under 100,000. So if someone is, their household income is above that level, they are able to participate, but they would not receive a rebate because we're trying to incentivize participation for people that would be greater assistance for them monetarily. So next slide, please. And just participant eligibility within Bloomington city limits needs to be owner occupied. That just allows us to verify that you have permission to make these changes against the home. Applicant must be the homeowner, and there will be, in order to get a loan, a credit check provided by the bank. At the end of the process, so let's say that someone's completed a solar project or changed their water heater, once the project has been verified as complete and they meet the eligibility criteria, they would then be able to get that rebate that I mentioned. Next slide. There's a variety of financial benefits participating. One that we're really focusing on, especially as people are coming out of the pandemic, is reducing their energy bills and utility costs due to efficiency increases. This is also important because utility costs have gone up through a series of Duke rate increases. And then also just helping people take advantage of two things that are present in the next year. One is the federal tax credit for solar installations is at 26% right now. It starts to step down over the course of the next couple of years. So it's really a good time to do that. And for those that may or may not be familiar, about 4 years ago, the state legislature passed a law that means that net metering, which is an agreement where you get a utility rate for the electricity that you produce through solar, will be eligible only for the next year. So that's another sort of perk for participating. Next slide. So one of the reasons we wanted to come to talk to you today is because if someone's home is in a historically designated area, they have a little bit of a different process from a typical person participating. So for anyone, the first step will be to send an intake form, which allows us to collect basic information about the person and make sure, are you in city limits? Do you own your home, etc. They'll then get eligibility confirmation from us to say, yes, you're able to participate. If someone is interested in then getting a loan, they would complete their application and complete their home updates. So the process for someone that's in a historically designated area to get solar specifically is a little bit different because they would need to submit their certificate of appropriateness to you as a commission and determine whether the system that they would like to install is allowable. In the past, I don't know how many applications have come across the commission, but we just wanted to make sure that you're aware that there could be an increase in applications for solar installations, and to just be able to answer any questions and provide our information if you have any questions. So we did provide information for our program participants on our frequently asked questions sheet, and it will also be on our website, and that will help anyone that's applying determine maybe they don't realize their home is in a historic district, explains what that certificate of appropriateness process is, and has a link to the website. And as would be customary in any process, is that they'll then submit that application basically to you all for permission, and then it will come up at your next meeting. And just wanted you to be aware that we are hoping to have more participation of people getting solar in some of these districts. There are certain areas of town that have had more installations than others, but we have about 600 now solar installations across Monroe County. So there haven't been any major issues with solar installers going through getting designation. But for those of you that might be new commissioners or have any questions or concerns for us in relation to this program, we just wanted to be here to answer any questions that you might have. I will note that we're launching this month, so we're learning as well, and we'll continue to be receiving questions from the community. We'll have a series of webinars and be reaching out to some of the homeowners associations and other groups that might be interested in participating. So I see there is a question from Jenny, perhaps 2 questions. Whoever wants to get started.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, sorry, it took me a second to unmute. Now, my question was, it wasn't listed specifically, but one of the things, is this program applicable to high efficiency replacement windows on a house?
Yeah, so there's a particular, you could get a window replacement and cover that under the loan. It would just have to be like $3,000 worth of windows. So if you wanted to do windows and something else and it equaled $3,000, you could get a loan for that. And if you're wondering what the efficiency is on the windows, I could get that back to you as well. But there's
No, that's just another thing. It's not just solar panels that we would be concerned about. There's other things like where the equipment would be positioned for like efficiency furnace system for the air conditioning and stuff like that. So at which part of the process would they step in? I saw you had step 1, step 2, step 3. So when would they be told, or would you guys check when you're checking, do they live in the city and how much money they're making? Would it be easier for you to just check whether or not they're in a historic district before you go through the loan process and stuff?
Yeah, that's a good point. We could add that question in the intake form so that we would have an idea of what volume you might be anticipating at the next meeting. I think also when they pull the potential building permit for any modifications, that's when it would trigger potential involvement with the HPC.
Some things don't trigger the building permit though for changes. So that's why I thought maybe earlier in the process would be better.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you.
Sam, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I guess I'm assuming that you don't work with a set of particular vendors. It's kind of open to the market for who supplies all of these improvements, and you're just sort of doing the approvals and the financial. So this might be less of a question, more of a suggestion about what to put on your FAQ sheet. Because if somebody is in an historic district and will come before the HPC, we'll need to know what products they're talking about putting on their house, where they're going to be put. And just so you know how we operate a little bit, we only get to deal with stuff that goes on the outside of the house that's visible from the public right of way. So if you can't see it, we don't look at it. But if we do look at it, we like to know exactly what we're looking at and where it's going to be. So if you could hammer that home before they get here, it will speed up the process.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm thinking specifically, I mean, like ground mount panels or also rooftop. We've had a couple that needed to do more of a setback from the street, so they weren't as visible.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Chris.
Really, I'm just adding on to what Jenny mentioned, which is the thing we hate to have is someone come forward. I've bought all my windows. Just found out I need to get permission to switch them. Everybody told me it was fine. What do you guys think? That's the process that really is a disaster. And we'd like to be able to warn you to not walk them down that path. If sometimes they have no idea they're changing sizes of windows or taking out historic windows. And then the PS is I imagine this is all built in to be careful to not get people in financial trouble with this kind of loan. I mean, I imagine they're qualified the way or people with getting loans are, but it sounds like this is designed for people that may not be able to get a regular loan for this kind of deal. And I think you might have addressed this in your comments that there have been programs, federal programs that have gotten people in deep and in problems. So I imagine that you're paying attention to that issue as well.
Yeah, I would say that there is a credit score qualification. So if someone especially doesn't meet that criteria or doesn't have the sufficient income, that's not the intention here. I really, we've heard from past solar information sessions that people may have issues with gaps that are not a large enough loan to interest a normal bank, or they're looking to maybe upsize the system or look to combine several projects that might not be covered under an existing loan product. So that's why the minimum is 3,000. I think that once they're in the process of the loan application, that would be the point at which they would figure out the monthly payment and what the loan length that they're comfortable would be as well. So it's kind of a case-by-case system, but we're hoping that people achieve more financial stability instead of less by reducing their utility costs.
Window deals, window estimates can be $20,000 to $30,000 for full replacement. And what we know as preservationists is the payback on window replacement can be 70 years or 80 years on the investment. So window company salespeople may be liking this program, and you ought to be careful that that's not where we waste that money.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a question. Is the program eligible only if you need to take out a loan? Or is there an incentive program for people who don't need to take a loan?
Right now, we're incentivizing participation in the loan program. We're hoping to get more support over the course of perhaps through the American Rescue Fund or otherwise, to be able to do more grants. So we have done some grants for nonprofits, but we don't have enough funds right now to do residential grant programs. So at this point, yes, that would be incentivizing participation in the program, including getting the loan. But if you were able to pay back the loan faster, there's no prepayment penalty.
Yeah, and that was done partly because we wanted to be giving the rebates to people who need it the most, which is why it has an income cap. And so most people who wouldn't need to take out a loan probably are in a financial situation where they can make those improvements. And like Lauren said, there was no prepayment penalty. So someone could even do a $3,000 loan, even if they did a much larger project, and then the $1,000 rebate goes directly to the homeowner. They can use that to make a payment on the loan or not. So that's up to them. So it's not, we felt like we wanted it to be economically progressive in that sense, but also I wouldn't describe it as a super high bar for participation in the loan.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes. What I want to understand is someone coming out to assess the home for their needs. Was that part of it? Someone will come out and say, we suggest you need windows, you need a front door or whatever. Does someone come out and do that, help these people decide what their needs are?
So that's part of what would be qualified under the program. You can get an energy assessment. If you already have a quote from a contractor, let's say that you need to replace your water heater, for instance, and it's going to be $7,000, you can just do that particular expense. We're not requiring an energy assessment simply because sometimes those can run pretty high depending on how in-depth they are. But it is a good place to start if you are not sure why your home is inefficient, which is why we included it as part of what would be qualified in the program.
And that's something you will do, your group will do?
We would be able to connect you with someone, yes.
Okay, all right.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to add that I want to thank you both for coming to us. And
oh, no, he's muted.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
thank you for having us.
Yeah. So we have a courtesy review tonight. So Brent, can we get that started?
Yes. So Peerless, there's some folks here, I believe, Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
I just made you a co-host. I think if you want to, do you want to share your screen with a presentation, or I can pull it up?
No, I can do that. I've got it all set and ready to go here. I was just going to wait. So before I bring up the screen, I'll just, again, thank everybody for giving us a few times, a little bit of time here today, and allowing us to kind of give you a introductory presentation of what we're planning on doing with some new development at the Johnson Creamery building, which I think many of you are probably aware of in downtown Bloomington. So with that, whoops, I'm gonna share my screen. And you should all be able to see the PowerPoint here that I've got going on. Does that everybody see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, my name is Joe Patrick, and I'm the director of development with Peerless Development. We're based out of Chicago, and we are owners of the Johnson Creamery building and site here in Bloomington. And as part of that, what we're coming here today to, again, just going to give you a little introductory presentation on what we're hoping to do for a little bit of a redevelopment of the Johnson Creamery building itself. And as part of that, provide an addition and some change of use of that space. So we'll start with just kind of an overall plan of the building. Like I said, I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, but this is 7th Street here along the bottom of the image. The Beeline bike and pedestrian trail is right along the edge of the building there. And the red dots indicate a series of photographs and where those were taken. I'm going to walk you through those photos in a minute here, but just to kind of give you a sense, we're starting here at kind of the southeast corner. We're going to walk around the building to the north, essentially. And what we are proposing and what we'd like to kind of present to you guys today is this area that's highlighted in red is an area that was not part of the original structure of the building and is the result of subsequent additions over the years to the building. And unfortunately, the character of that portion of the building is certainly not up to the standards of the original Creamery building, and has not fared as well over the years as a result of that. So I think, again, for those who are familiar with it or maybe not familiar, but this might be helpful. So photograph 1 here in the upper left-hand corner, again, we're standing on 7th Street looking north, and this is kind of the corner of the building of the original structure. You can see the old smokestack in the back here around the back of the building there. And this area here is kind of the front edge of one of the subsequent additions over the years. And as we walk around to the east, you can start to see metal canopy. And again, this is part of the original structure here on the left and some of the subsequent addition here on the right. And you'll notice that in some areas, the brick matches, in some areas it doesn't. And as you kind of start to walk along the edge, it kind of changes in character from the original structure to what's really more of a blank wall along the Beeline there. And then it takes on a little more of a utilitarian perspective with a garage door, oversized garage doors, some small windows, and again, a lot more blank wall with a little more of more of an industrial kind of feel to it. You can start to see some of the building here that's either been infilled or repaired over the years due to failures. And as we walk along the back edge here, you start to see some of the back of the building, which has obviously suffered from, unfortunately, from a lot of tagging and graffiti and repairs over the years. Incidentally, what you're looking at here in the foreground, this is this small building here is part of the cellular tower equipment, which is located on the existing smokestack. So that building will be coming down as part of our overall redevelopment of this site, because the cellular antennas, which are currently located on the smokestack there, will be coming down as well. So this building will no longer be necessary once that's done. And as we walk around, this takes us to the back side of it. So we're now kind of on the north side of the building. And in this area here, you can start to see the hodgepodge of masonry and the ill repair that's gone over the years, and some of the rather unsightly additions that have happened up on the second floor over the years as well. So that is essentially, and I'm going to backtrack now. What we've done is we've walked around the building, but that kind of gives you a perspective of this facade here along the exterior of the portion of the building that we are hoping to essentially demolish this portion of the building. And what we'd be looking to do is replace it with, I'm sorry, here's a floor plan. Whoops, here's a floor plan that just shows the areas that have been part of the additions over the years. The original back of the building is here. Inside, there's a kind of a large thick wall, which used to be the exterior of the building to the north. And subsequently, all of these years, these pieces have been added in the back here. So what we're doing here, this is a plan of the overall site. And this shows the area in red is what we are proposing would be a new 4-story apartment building that would be kind of taking over some of that space that would be the area that was demolished that we had walked around on the former photographs there. You can see the existing Johnson Creamery building here and the taller 3-story structure in the back over here. That would all remain. We would end up kind of modifying and doing some interior renovations as part of this as well. The majority of the building would be maintained as office, which it is today, and the second floor of this area would become also residential. The building here in the back, that would be kind of a separate project. That this is over the existing parking lot that's there. But just to kind of give you a sense of the overall development of the site that we're planning on bringing about here. And one of the goals that we've got here is that, and I think you probably noticed it when you start to look at some of these photos, and forgive me for flipping kind of quickly, but unfortunately, the facade that's presented along the B-line, which is a major kind of pedestrian thoroughfare here in Bloomington, is really not very pedestrian friendly, and it's not very engaging. And in fact, in the wintertime, thankfully, we have these pictures that were taken during the late winters when there wasn't a lot of foliage on the trees. But when the trees are full, and it tends to be kind of hidden in many instances. And I think that was probably purposeful since it is not such a sightly facade. But our goal is to really kind of activate this entire length of the B-line of our property here and kind of engage that. So that's one of the reasons that we're kind of taking this up, and we feel that this can be a really nice overall development and amenity to Bloomington and in specific this area of the B-line. So what I've got here is a couple initial renderings that I think will help me kind of give you just a little flavor of what we're talking about here. So you can see the existing building, and we're not quite getting, again, this is really early and conceptual, so we haven't really gotten into how we would address any of the renovations and replacement of windows and things like that. I obviously overheard some of the window discussions previously, so we know that would all be part of the discussion as we get into renovating the existing building. But what we're talking about here, and what I wanted to kind of give you guys a little introduction to, is what our thoughts are on where we would demolish some of the portion of the building that's kind of less than sightly and replace what we feel would be a really nice addition here. So this is a 4-story, again, apartment building, which will end up being mixed use, mostly, given the location, it would probably be a combination of market rate apartments and student housing, just based on its location and proximity to the university. The intent would be obviously to kind of make sure that we are working in with the character and the local vernacular of the masonry and some of the industrial feel of the area. These are very early conceptual renderings. So we're happy and we'd love to get feedback, which is the whole point of this, but I don't want anybody to take it to heart that this is exactly what the building's going to look like or exactly how it's going to be laid out yet. Just to kind of give everybody a little bit of a flavor here. Same thing, kind of working our way around, and you'll notice the smokestack here, the existing smokestack that's in the foreground of the image. And again, I'm going to back up to the plan. So as part of the overall development, we are going to be essentially renovating, if you want to call it that, and refinishing and repairing the existing smokestack. So right now we are in the application process and kind of working through the details, but the intent is to remove a small portion at the top that's been badly damaged and is kind of leaning significantly, and repair and resurface, if you will, with protective coatings, the balance of it from the inside and the outside to make sure that it becomes a little more of a stable structure for the long term. So the intent is to keep it by all means and to have that be part of the overall development. So just to make sure everybody's aware of that. And our intent, I think, would be that the new building, while it's simply shown as a white box here in this image, that's simply because of the timing, that it's just really early conceptual, but that would likely have very similar features and finishes and a design concept as to this addition here. So, whoops, sorry. I think that's the last image that I have there. So again, I do appreciate you guys letting us kind of present this to you. And the goal was really to just kind of get it in front of the group, make sure that you guys are kind of aware of what we're thinking about doing here, and to get any feedback, and whether it's, positive, negative, or criticism, we're open to all of it. We'd like to just kind of hear what the group thinks and see if there's any questions that we might be able to answer for you guys early on, which will help inform how the process goes and how we take it from here.
Questions or comments?
You want hands up?
Sure, whoever, I guess I don't really have the control of the hands, but whoever'd like to ask, I'm happy to spend time here and answer any questions that you guys might have.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm really happy to hear that you're repairing and restoring the smokestack. That's kind of an iconic part of that piece of town. I think I'm happy to hear this is an initial design. I'd really like you to pay a lot of attention to your proportions of windows. If you're looking for something industrial, it needs a bit more massaging before it gets there. Right now it's a kind of a combination of sort of 1980s storefront on the corners, and the fenestration is just very odd at the moment. And I guess the other thing I'd say, it's nice to tie stuff in, tie in with a material palette that's at least got some similarities to the adjacent historic building. That said, it feels more like you're using the brick as wallpaper. I mean, it doesn't seem like it means something. It's sort of, we need a little bit of a different material here. So it basically, you have these vertical towers, and some have brick on them and some don't. And then it's intermixed with what looks like a horizontal hardy panel or something like that. But, I'm an architect, so I'm going to fuss at you a little bit, but make your material choices, the locations, especially of your material choices, tie back to what you're trying to do inside the building. Make them mean something, because right now it feels like there's just differentiation between materials because you need to break the mass of the building up. And that worries me a little bit. The scale of it, I'm not so fussed about. I think, I'm a big fan of high density near the downtown core, but I might disagree with you a little bit about all the extent of the building you're wanting to tear down. There are parts of that facade that I actually find really attractive. I mean, the second story additions, I'm totally with you, but some of the rest of it is actually kind of charming and really recalls the history of the building. The accretional nature of it is, it's good and bad, and you get good and bad additions. And there's some stuff that you want to get rid of, like, hooray, you're getting rid of the little comm shed in the back. But some of it is, it might have some charm. But thank you for coming and showing it to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, a lot of what I just heard, I agree with. I like preserving that. It is absolutely essential to preserve the smokestack. I like that idea. And after again, looking at those windows and stuff, I know you said this is not it, and I'm glad that that's not the final say, because I think there can be a lot of improvements there. But I appreciate you sharing this, and it's good to know that this building is going to be saved. It's very important, but I'd like to see a different concept of what it could look like.
Jenny?
Okay, absolutely.
You're still muted, Jenny.
Yes.
There we go.
There we
Okay. I was wondering, how long has Peerless owned the building?
That's a good question. A few years. I don't, you know what, I'll be honest with you, I'm relatively new to the company myself, only for, about the last 6 months. So it's been a year and a half, 2 years, at least, I think, since we've purchased the building.
Okay.
November 2019.
There you go. Thank you.
And these are to be apartments, not condos?
Correct.
Okay. There's also some industrial equipment that's on display. I think it's in picture 2. There might be another one somewhere else on the property. Yes.
Yep.
Do you have any intentions toward those?
We would certainly try to reuse those. I mean, the intent is, yeah, they're part of the character and old, obviously creamery machinery. So yeah, we would certainly reuse those where we can on site as part of just one of the, even though this is a little beyond what we were talking about today, the concept for the new building here on the front creates a kind of an enlarged, we'll call it like a finger park, if you will, that extends from the Beeline to the west. There's a number of different reasons for that, and I can go into it, but we don't really have enough of the concept of that building. But one of our initial thoughts was actually kind of creating a little bit of a sculpture garden up here in the northeast corner of the site. So that was certainly one of the thoughts, would be we may be relocating some of those sculptures and machinery pieces to that area. So they're still, they're actually a little more visible on the Beeline today, or they would be in the future than they are today, where the one is kind of hidden in the back of the building back over here, and the other one is kind of tucked away in this front corner.
Okay, I would say that I agree with Sam that the part of the stuff your intentions to tear down are kind of part of the character of the building. I especially liked the area on, let's see, picture number 5. Says a little bit about the age and the history of the building. I guess that's about it. I'll have to walk around and look at it myself and things like that, but I really appreciate you guys coming in early.
Yep.
That, and it'd be interesting. I'm kind of sad it's not going to be condos, because I think would be really cool to own. But okay, well, thank you.
No, I appreciate it.
Bernard?
Unfortunately, I'm 4th in line, and it's gonna sound like I'm just piling on. But I was a bit crestfallen when I heard the words student housing. I don't think that's an issue here, but I would have liked to see condominiums or something else. This building be used for something else. However, I looked at the renderings, and it looks like every other apartment building in Bloomington. You drive through the neighborhood, there's nothing unique about it. And, to echo a comment Sam made, the brick just looked like wallpapering. I would really like to see something more creative, something about the design that would make the building special. Perhaps people would actually go out of their way to come and have a look at it. But I really don't see anything special or unique about the design proposed, and I just believe that's sad. And I just like to see something different and unique.
Okay.
Matt?
Yeah, this is less of a question for the developer, unless you happen to know it, and more of a question for my fellow commissioners, and I apologize for not knowing this. But what is this? Is the creamery on the register a contributing element to a district? What's the actual sort of historical designation for the building, as well as the addition? Do we know that?
Matt, I can answer that. The building is notable. It's on the sites and structures list. It's on the National Register. It was put on in 1996. The original creamery building, the part that was on the National Register, was built in 1913. The additions, based on some very quick research, when we talked to folks, we talked to Peerless yesterday about this. Looks like all the additions were pre-1951 and the smokestack was 1949. So that's what I know.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thanks, John.
Anybody else?
Yes, I guess you can't see my hand, but I have comments. Should I proceed?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, one thing I would suggest is look at the design work that got worked out in the trades district for the remainder of that Showers factory. There was a real effort to leave that original structure and work from it, and it complemented the product as a result. So that's first, you could still achieve your goals, but work with what's there in a way. And the other thing, maybe a planner is here with us, but I remember when we were planning for zoning along the Beeline before the Beeline existed, that we wanted permeable ground floor commercial. We wanted not fences and you can't come in here, it's my apartment, but places people could go. And that's a very social area just off of the street and the market. And it could be really excellent to have a kind of coffee shop on the corner, to have some ground floor commercial that could be pedestrian accessed. And it could be the way that you could use existing old structure and build up a new structure behind it where you respect the historic property, but still get your square footage. And I don't remember what the planning zoning is along the trail, because maybe we failed to ask that. But what we didn't want was a trail that nobody had anywhere to go on, where you just, and if we continually just put residential along it, there's nowhere to stop. There's nowhere to get a cup of coffee. There's no public amenities along the trail. So maybe there's a planner here who could say if we ever enacted anything like that. It was in our goals way back when. And we don't look at it now because we walk by it and it's a blank wall. But if holes in that old brick wall were open and a coffee shop was in it, for instance, it'd be a benefit to those who are living there as well as people who use that trail. And the follow-up question is, have we already approved the other block of renovation or the new apartment building that's happening to the back? Is that already approved, and is the plan all in place for that? And if so, we should see it in combination with what you're planning here.
So I can answer a couple of questions there. So the area in the back, we had a previous design that has gone through the Plan Commission and was approved. And unfortunately, the reality is that as we kind of worked our way through the construction documents and final bidding of that project, it came in just excessively expensive. And there's a number of reasons for that. And so what we've had to do is we've kind of had to scrap that design. And now we're in the process of redesigning the building in the back there. and one of the biggest challenges that we've come across, which really kind of will address a couple of the concerns and comments that the folks have had here, is the reason that we haven't actually kind of built all the way out to the edge here and tried to maintain some of those existing walls like you had talked about, and try to rework some of that building and kind of work through it. There is an existing stormwater box culvert that runs diagonally through the site. And in fact, it actually runs underneath the existing building, which we feel was probably the result of some of those subsequent additions over the years that may have never been properly permitted, or may have actually been built out of what was permitted in order to allow a building to be built over a stormwater structure like that without an easement. And the challenge is that, and I hate to get into too many of the weeds here, but that box culvert is really old and very, from our understanding, kind of delicate. And so what we're trying to do is try to avoid it. And that really has informed the shape of these buildings and the extent at which we can push out. And that's really what has prompted us to kind of, in some of these images here that you see with this kind of fence and little knee wall here, those are areas that would be directly above this storm structure that we would be allowed to do because they're easily removable. Whereas a building, and even leaving those existing walls without, as kind of partial structures, would require some rework and some structural rework of those inevitably. And that's where it kind of gets really concerning of that existing storm structure. So we've been trying to do our best to avoid it in this conceptual plan. Now I understand that it's very conceptual, and I do agree that the facade work needs a lot of, caressing and massaging. It's very, very preliminary. It's just trying to make sure that we get at least something in front of the group here to kind of give everybody a concept of what we're thinking. So I appreciate the feedback, but I assure you that that's not our final intention.
What do you think about a commercial component?
Well, again, part of the challenge is the commercial component would end up having to be kind of back within our building. It would have to take over that space. It's not like we're actually end up, because of this storm structure, we end up losing a lot of land, if you will, that we could actually build that retail structure on. So we would end up having to be either, within the building here or way back, kind of off of the beeline. So we have explored that, and I wouldn't say that that's out of the, possibility at this point. I think we need to, ensure that we can, that the residential portion of it can work for us on a kind of a pro forma basis, and then to see how the retail might fit into that mix. It's kind of a delicate balance there.
Right. Well, for a coffee shop, you'd give up one unit perhaps, and it might help sell the rentals in the building too.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a coffee shop right almost, kitty corner from where we are right now. And I don't know that they'd appreciate another coffee shop right there. So we hate to take away business from an existing local business that's right, literally right here down the beeline.
If I can hop in, we've looked at the southeast corner of the existing Johnson Creamery building, so the portion that would stay. We think that would actually make a really good retail corner. And we're, as we go through and we, are moving forward on this plan, we're going to need to sort of discuss with our current tenants about potentially relocating within the building. And that space might open up and be a really good space for retail that would, both be on 7th and adjacent to the beeline intersection there, and have the most amount of space where we could do, landscape seating or, outdoor patio, and have that, between that buffer of the building and the beeline. So I think it's a great suggestion. And as Joe said, I think we can definitely look into putting it into the addition. But we've definitely already talked about potentially adding it into the existing building on the first floor.
And forget the coffee. Do another commercial. Sell juice, breakfast. I don't care.
Gotcha.
Duncan, did you have something?
Yeah.
Duncan?
Yeah, I'm surprised that nobody has discussed that they're taking away a third of a National Register project. I mean, I was the construction manager on this project in 1993 through 1996, and we renovated this entire building. It's roughly 25 years ago. The part that you're taking down, that you want to take down, was actually where most of the mechanical facility was located, and was the boiler room adjacent. That's why the smokestack is where it is. So to take the boiler room off a National Register building and leave the smokestack is, frankly, doesn't make any sense. And the point of these National Register buildings is that they are informing their community about its history and its place in time in the history. And if you would bother to read the National Register nomination, I think you might gather a somewhat better opinion of the importance of this building. And, you know, the facade may be industrial, but guess what? It was an industrial building. And it was completely restored and put on the National Register, well, according to Secretary standards, with that in mind. And I personally consider it, aside from my own role in it, one of the most significant historic buildings in the town. And it tells an enormous story, as do the other Showers buildings. And encroaching on it with any kind of housing is, you know, anathema as far as I'm concerned. If you did manage to get permission to tear down almost a third of this building, it would almost certainly be delisted from the National Register of Historic Places. Now, that may be your goal ultimately, but that is almost certainly a result. You can't take a National Register building, make it into something that makes money for you, and consider it, still consider it a historic building. I mean, I don't mean to be too harsh, but frankly, the reason these buildings are preserved is to prevent them from being changed. And so you're in my book, you're really asking a lot. And in terms of activating the area has been well activated by the market and the formation of City Hall and the mill and all the rest of it. You know, we don't need another coffee shop. We need to have a way to remember who we are. And you're basically wanting us to fulfill your vision, and you're not even part of our community. So, you know, I don't know how this would come to us as a demolition delay, but if we approve this as a demolition delay, I would, you know, probably leave town. So this is, I mean, you guys need to talk about what's in front of you and stop talking about the fenestration of a building that looks like every building that's ever been here. The Johnson Creamery is totally unique. It was built in 4 different stages. The original part was restored back to look like it did originally. And all the wings and the ice house and all that tell a major story about the building and the contribution of industrial creamers to society and blah, 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 blah. And now we're being asked to just forget it. That's just not appropriate.
Sam, did you have something else?
I guess the other thing I would ask the petitioner to do for the next time around is to bring us a diagram showing where this your box culvert is.
Oh, absolutely.
With an overlay of where it is relative to the existing building.
Yep, absolutely.
Anybody else tonight?
Sam, I know where the box culvert is. It runs under the existing boiler room on the eastern edge. And there used to actually be a manhole in that room where you could go into the box culvert from it. And I've been in that box culvert several times with a gas mask and the rest of it to assess the construction, you know, the value of the construction. And a lot of it is still a limestone arch tunnel, which is why it's precarious. But it basically runs, if you just take your eye parallel to the trail, it's basically on the outer edge of the building, and where he's cut the building off there, yep. He's put it into the landscape, but it only passes through the very eastern edge of the existing boiler room, which is the large addition to the rear closest to the smokestack. Yep. And we didn't have any trouble renovating the building with that in place. Nobody, you know, it's an existing condition, and then it's totally legal to have a building on top of it.
Anybody else?
I'll just thank Duncan for his insight. He knows more about this building than anyone, and I think the jury will be out on what we decide if it comes to us.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no, thank you for your time, everybody, and for the feedback. It's great.
All right.
Can I make one more comment really quick?
Sure.
You know, we certainly appreciate the comments and the feedback and the historical nature of the building in general. This particular portion of the building has been susceptible to flooding and water intrusion, particularly bad in this building. And that was exemplified again just a couple of weeks ago during the bad storm over the weekend, where that piece of the building had over 18 inches of water in it. It's the lowest point. It's consistently smelling of must and mold, and it's very much unattractive for anybody to utilize it. I really, while it's great to keep historical structures, I think it's also important that we are utilizing these structures if you're going to keep them. So we've just found that this is really not a piece of the building that is going to be useful. And like I said, as much as I'm for being able to renovate and reuse structures and keep pieces of history, this is not something that we can use. The market has clearly explained that to us, and we'd be happy to walk some of the commissioners through the property to show you for yourselves what we mean. And then the second piece is that while this is a nationally landmarked building, we also understand that developers push for that so they can get the tax credits to do a renovation. So that's part of the piece of why it became a nationally registered building. And we're not seeking any sort of tax credits or abatements to do the project. So we're not utilizing or leveraging the fact that it is a nationally landmark building. We're simply trying to take a piece of it that's completely functionally obsolete and be able to bring it to a higher, better use so that we can have the funds and the budget to keep the building alive and running. Otherwise, the building itself will not be able to be sustainable, and it will continue to fall into disrepair. So this is in part a piece that's needed so we can continue to preserve the entire building and the smokestack into the future.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Matt, did you have something else?
Yeah, I guess maybe because of the way the conversation has gone a little bit, but it probably bears clarifying. It's very kind to come in advance and seek general advice. And I think a lot of, like Sam and folks who are actual architects, can throw that stuff there at you, and that's great. At the end of the day, as the ruling that we would be making would be having to do with something like a demolition delay permit for demolishing that part of it. And that's going to be made on basically the historical characteristic of the building and the where it is on the National Register and things like that. It's not really made on whether we think what you're going to do is nice or not. It's not, we're not here to approve the overall vision for the area, really. That's more like the city planning department and that kind of thing. We, our job is to take a look at the historic fabric, the historic character of the building and say, this is really something that, we don't feel comfortable letting go or not. So just wanted to kind of clarify that. And because for me, I'm going to be taking a careful look at the register nomination myself and a look at how the addition fits into that register nomination. And could wind up being a very hard thing to say, like, yeah, no, go away, regardless of how I might feel about condos or housing or coffee shops or whatever. I mean, that's not my job. That's not our job on this commission to decide whether your project is worthy or not. So that's where I'll be looking and what I would be recommending you and your specialists look at. And maybe if you have a historic consultant, that would probably help a lot. So thanks.
Yep, I appreciate it. That's great insight.
And I would re-suggest that you look at the review you could get from staff that the commission did for the latest addition to the trades district. It evolved with the discussion of the historic commission, and it respected the old building while keeping an industrial look to the new building, and it might inform the future. And to say that there's no relation between what happens later is maybe legally a correct point, but it matters.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you again.
Okay, great. I'll stop.
Let's move on.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Any other, so John, you wanted to say something about demolition delay?
Yeah, I just want to circle back to our demolition delay that you heard on 2412 West 3rd. And look, everybody, as director, I take responsibility for the packet that went out, which I approved. I'll just give you a little context here, just for explanation. I had that house as sort of a, I wouldn't call it a slam dunk, but I guess I'll say that for lack of a better term, what I knew about this property going in. And this was one of the first unsafe orders I signed. So I take that, the unsafe issue and life safety and everything else extremely seriously in this job. And so if I jump the gun on there a little bit by not getting more information about this property, I'll take responsibility for that. I looked at, and I'm a preservationist as much as any of you. And what the staff told me about this house, I looked at it, knew that the outbuilding had been removed already. And so I sort of thought this was pretty straightforward, and we'll be more mindful going forward how we take pictures of structures that are not structurally sound, and just regardless of the structural integrity of the building, its historic character will be, I'll be more mindful of that down the road. So I just wanted to explain that and let you know where that decision was housed, and it was with me. So there you go. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Any other new business? Any old business? Any public comments? Any commissioner comments?
I do. There was a show on Science Channel last night. It's called Impossible Engineering. And episode 4 is where they did restored and changed an historic abandoned power station. I think that would be good if you guys could have a chance to see it, because here's a building that was historically, and they repurposed it. And that's kind of like what they're wanting to do with the Johnson Center, Johnson Creamery. So it might give us some idea what is possible, but people can do in saving historic properties without tearing things down.
Any other commissioner comments? Sam?
I'd just like to reiterate how happy I am Gloria is here. Welcome, welcome. And also thank you for dropping in before you actually started.
I agree.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I've just been sitting in during all of this time and I haven't commented anything, but I wanted to say I am eager to start working next week, and I'm really happy that I came today because now I have a better feeling of how everything works, how the voices, each of your voices comes across in terms of, with the issues at hand and just the general operating procedures. So anyways, I am really happy to be coming on board, and after Monday, or once Monday starts, we'll see how things go. I will follow the lead of Brent Pierce and John Zodi in terms of procedures, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks or earlier. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great to meet you.
Likewise.
Any other commissioner comments?
I just add, I'd look forward to in-person meetings where we can get to know each other a bit. We have new members and old members who have just seen pictures of each other on screen, and it'd be nice to get together real time, real life, and get to know each other. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any announcements? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, let's go. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks, Jeff.
Welcome, Gloria.
Thank you.